But I think also the fact that it brings up so strong emotions for people, I think it's a sign of very successful storytelling. I mean,
absolutely.
like, it just brings up to me like the deepest issues about how me and my husband's relationship has been, and just noticing, various relationships of other people that are very close to me, and it's hit so close to home, and it's very poignant. I think it's so deep, and so many stories in general are very superficial. They like each other, they fall in love, it's like great. And this is so
very real.
Human life is so messy. We are so messy, and like the more deeper you go into like our 𝗪𝗪, like our livers, like the more messy you get. Like, we're very flawed creatures, and I think for people to expect to be like, oh, like I'm gonna marry a perfect person and we're all gonna live happily ever after, is so wrong. I mean, welcome to The Story Thinker, a Webtoons and Witcher podcast for superfans with scene-by-scene analysis. Featuring sharp co-hosts for a fuller picture, we dive deep into character psychology, relationships, and theories. We'd love it if you could like, subscribe, comment, and rate us on all podcast platforms and social media. For bonus content, you can support The Story Thinker on Patreon. Let's begin. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 176 of Let's Play. And we are here with Sabra, Sadie, and Krystine.
Hi.
All right, and we just finished recording episode 175, and we will have next week 177, so the last chapter of this season. So we're anticipating some massive stuff.
No, I think it's gonna be boring.
Just stroll in the park.
It's just a whole episode.
I think they're gonna go
Bowser.
grocery shopping and
Condom shopping.
Bowser and his little
condom shopping,
princess doll.
Yeah.
Bowser and Dinah, maybe.
Oh, that'd be adorable.
There we go.
You got it. Next episode. Bowser and Dinah.
Monkey's like, ha, you thought we're talking about it. Nope.
Right. All right. So we are going to have some probably pretty serious discussion here. And if y'all are on the Facebook group, whoever's listening, you'll know that there's been a lot of discussion about this chapter. So I guess I want to preface this. I hope that we can sensitively navigate this, both to Mangi, who we love and adore and respect a lot for her writing, and to all the readers, because some of them, I think, have been through situations and their trauma is triggered, and I want to respect that and understand that everyone has different reactions based on their life experience. And I hope that we can be sensitive to everybody. And it is our intention to be kind and sensitive to everyone. So I hope we can live up to that. All right. So the chapter begins ominously, right? The sky itself.
It's a little ominous.
Yeah.
Nighttime.
Right. Usually we have like these fluffy blue clouds, but we have some, it's nighttime. We got the
literally just the way it starts. Like the first word you read.
Loom.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep my mouth shut.
And Charles is standing in front of her door. He's looming there. Shadows there. He is sweating. He's got he's composed, right? He's got his controlled, his fixed shirt, his hairstyle slicked back. He sighs.
It's sad seeing him being triggered by like every door right now. Is really just it's like every door that he has to open, it's like he's got to prepare himself.
I just imagine
it's not like you can avoid it.
Office door and he's like, ah. Oh God.
I don't think it's every door. I think it's every door with Sam right now because of it's his.
Well, have we seen him? I thought we had a few other doors. I'd have to look back. I thought there was another door
on the other
that
side.
I'd have to look. I think I'm confusing it with when we were seeing his flashback and then we see him opening up a regular door. But I think you're right. I don't think he was being traumatically affected at that moment. So maybe it is just doors that Sam's behind, but it's still sad.
Yeah, it is. So he lifts up his hand to knock, but then he pauses and he looks very
it looks like his jaw's clenched. Yeah.
He looks worried. Like
he looks very depressed. Like his eyes eyelids are low.
Hooded.
Yeah, hooded, that's the word.
And then there's
disappointed with himself, doesn't he? He's like, I should. He like he knows he's doing something he shouldn't.
What is he doing that he shouldn't?
I don't know. I'm just saying that's what he looks like. How he feels.
Oh, well, maybe he's a very controlling person, so maybe the fact that he is having these reactions really irritate him. He's like, I'm better
Mhm.
than this. I know better than this. Why am I letting this affect me? It shouldn't be this big of a deal.
Yeah. Like
His-
he's just disappointed, you know, with
His
the
weakness.
yeah.
Can I
Mhm.
just say it's such a like stereotypically manly thing? It's like, oh, I have feelings that are making me sad. I don't want to have them. What's wrong with me? Why am I a mess up for having human feelings? I will now proceed to stuff them down and not work on them.
Yep.
I'm a man.
Did you hear that, Charles? I'll make her say it again in a minute.
Like, I went through a severe trauma and I never processed it. I'm gonna be totally fine.
This is gonna be fine. I'm fine.
Trauma
It's
is
gonna freeze myself entirely. I'm fine.
Trauma, schmama, like whatever.
Oh my gosh.
No,
Yeah.
this rings incredibly true. Whatever. I don't know if I should like to say this, but let's just say there's a person very close to me who was in the military, and he went through he was in like war situations, came back home, several of his friends committed suicide, and years later now he's like, well, I think it affected me. I think I have to go to therapy because I realize I'm having issues. I'm like,
It's basically a Charles moment where he's just been
Thank you.
stagnant for this long, and now finally it's coming to fruition, and he's like, maybe I should get help.
when it finally is affecting his life, when he's like, oh my God, this is terrible, my life is falling apart, then he's like, I think I have a problem.
And
Really
maybe that's
sad.
what
It's very
Charles is
sad.
coming
It's
to.
actually not really funny at all, but whatever. I guess the good part is he's finally seeking help.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So, but the thing that happens next is a little confusing to me because he goes from knocking to deciding to just open the door. So that's why I was a little confused. Like, is he upset? Is he like, oh, I shouldn't have to knock, I could just walk in? Like, I don't know if the two are connected or not.
I actually think it's kind of an understanding between them that he can just walk in because she was expecting him. But I think the face and this and him getting ready to knock, I think he knocks in this situation. Because imagine if he knocked on the door in his past,
Right.
you know, if he knocked on the door, I mean, he'd still see something he didn't want to see. But I feel like
He would
that
go under the
breaks up
bed.
his episode that he's having. If I knock, it's different. And I think that's why he was disappointed in himself, because he's like,
I shouldn't have to knock.
I should be okay doing this, because this is what's expected, and it's fine. I should just be fine. I think that's what it is. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I wondered if he kind of automatically reached out to knock on the door because that's what he'd done before, but it's quite late, isn't it? I assume
No,
the night.
I don't
like
think-
late at night.
I think it's like
9.
9 because she's asleep by 10:30.
Right.
Oh, so it's not that late then. I was
Yeah.
going to say, so you don't want to, knock on the door at like midnight or whatever, do you? So
Yeah, and she invited him to come over when he was done with his
yeah,
stuff. So, and she could have locked the door, and she didn't.
yeah,
I mean, if it was
Sure.
locked, then he would have knocked.
yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering if maybe he feels like he's being too formal with her. Like it's kind of the opposite of what he thinks, because right in his head he's like, oh, we're not in a relationship. If he was in a relationship, he might be feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have to knock, I should be close enough, but like that's not really his line of thinking. So but all right, so he lowers his hand, opens the knob, and we have little 𝗪𝗆. He's so excited. He's like, there you are, little chap, 𝗪𝗏𝗁 and picks 𝗪𝗆 up. He's smiling. He's like, you did much better protecting the door. You're proving why the queen has corgis as guard dogs. Have you been a good boy today? Thank you, Sabra. You're ready for your career as the voice actress. You can be the doggy.
She's Welsh. I want to hear your best Welsh accent now.
Me?
Don't have a Welsh.
Oh,
yeah.
Sabra.
She's doing much better than me.
I actually listened to Welsh people, and they sounded like the regular received pronunciation, but I think that they were speaking English. Not. I think there's always different standards, I guess, within people who speak Welsh, besides for the language Welsh, which obviously is a different language. But yeah, because the first time I looked up Welsh people, they were like speaking I didn't notice any particular accent. But anyway, and then I listened to another clip and I was like, oh, they do sound different. But Sadie, you're our resident, Britain expert, so you for sure know more than us.
The only like famous Welsh person that I can think of in like popular culture is the priest from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. He's Welsh.
Oh,
Father Blackwood. And he's a comedy actor over here. And he used to be in a sitcom called 𝗪𝗪𝗀. And that his character was called Jeff, and he was just a moron. And I loved him. And that is Charles's voice now, is Jeff. Like when I'm reading it, I'm like, it's Jeff. But yeah, so if you want to know like what like a relaxed, I think it's Father Blackwood or something like that.
on the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Okay, I'll look that up.
Yeah, but that's like a regular relaxed
Welsh.
accent. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've actually been listening to a lot of stuff about linguistics and Old English and the old like the languages of Great Britain. So I did learn a little bit about Welsh. So anywho, so he does speak Welsh because Sam was like, Charles, is that you? And he's like, 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗪. Okay, whatever. I don't know how it's pronounced, but whatever. We'll just do that.
Sounded good to me.
No idea. Too many consonants.
Right? The double down.
Oh,
Maybe next time. I should have looked it up because I do like languages. But anyway, and he's like, did you leave the door unlocked for me? And he looks happy. He looks like quite happy here.
it means good evening.
Okay,
Was that what you were wanting to know? Yeah, it means good evening, Bunty.
cool. Yeah, I was thinking about how to pronounce it, but awesome. Good evening. And she's like, of course, I took a gamble and guessed you might come over tonight. How was your day? And she's in her pajamas. She actually is even sitting on the side of her bed. So there's room for another one beside her. Oh, it's cute. She's on her phone. She's sweet. She's very sweet. It's very domestic. It's like they've already established, since it's apparently been a week, they've established quite a routine. And he's like,
Maybe it's been longer, but that's just how long it feels for me. So just going through it.
a short amount of time. And he says, busy but good. And he's just, Sam's like, you look as though you're dressed for work, which he is. Bowser's happy. He's on their bed. He's wagging his tail. And she says, my dad isn't making you work on a Sunday, is he? And she locks her phone, which I only noticed now, but it's interesting. And now I see the emphasis placed on the phone now. She locks it and she places it on her bedside. I didn't quite notice before, but there's like a lot of.
I think it's focused on it because I think Charles is focused on it.
Right.
I think we see
Yes.
it like this
Yes.
because I think he's focused on it.
I think, okay, so right. So let's go a little few panels and let's look about why we think that. And he says, no, Bunty, I've been in video conferences all day. And she's like, video conferences? And it's not for work? Okay, so first of all, video conferences, what y'all think it is?
It's got to be something for the 𝗪𝗏𝗄 is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The only other thing I can think of is it has to do with the game playing, but I don't think that's it. Because he mentioned that he was, he's been playing games. We don't know how or where or when or what it is, but the way he's dressed, I don't
Right.
really think it's that. That's the only other thing I could think of as a possibility. So I'm assuming it has to do with the 𝗪𝗏𝗄. Maybe he's accepted the position and they're having video conferences to discuss things. But again, that would be in the middle of the night for people
In England?
in England. So.
Yeah. People, right? Our dear Sadie, who is currently in the middle of the night.
It is the middle of the night, yes. Yeah. I think he was in an interview. What is it? 9 o'clock there. So
Does anybody else think
by
it's
now,
odd
it's
that
the end of the day.
he'd be in an
On
interview
a Sunday?
after he'd been offered a job?
I don't know about interview, but it could be like, setting up the position, like starting
Or maybe
already
he had
doing some
questions
work.
about it.
yeah, he just
Yeah.
wanted to know what it was, or maybe he's like trying to sort out because it's in the UK, isn't it? So
Mhm.
maybe he's got to sort out, moving back to
Yeah,
to find somewhere to live and stuff like
because
that.
he said he'd be busy all weekend.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm just like, it's got to be more in depth than just an interview.
Yeah, and I guess also like even if he's starting a new job, like what company is like doing this kind of stuff on? Who wants to like do this on weekends? Like
Something
they
that's
shut down.
shady that has to do with Mr. Lawson.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I'm still trying to find the connection between Mr. Lawson and Sam's story.
Right.
And I'm assuming the connection is through Charles in some way, but
Interesting. You know, it's funny because until we discussed it, I was like, I just right away assumed that he would have to do with his job, and I'm like, why would they be doing this on the weekend? You know, like no one wants to work on a weekend
in the
like,
middle of the night for them. I mean, if I
that's
was
what they
going to be
started
getting
earlier,
a
but yeah.
job, if I was going to be getting a job in a different country, I'm pretty sure they would do the interview at their convenience, and I would have to be the one up in the middle of the night. So it's confusing, and so I'm.
So maybe it's tied to that mysterious hobby that he has that we don't know about, which he needs to dress for.
Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know.
In a work outfit.
I don't know. Maybe he just changed into it because it was what he had in his car, and he has this like really crazy outfit that he wore. I don't know.
Okay,
I think we're veering off of the path. I think I'm deflecting from what's coming next.
All right,
so please no.
So whatever he was doing, he is kind of not really listening to her because he's, like you pointed out, everybody's looking at her phone. He has this sweat mark, and then he's glaring, and he has the chains behind him, and he's so mad.
And at first I thought this is what she was talking about. Like, is he upset that she mentioned video conferences? But he's looking at the phone. And I remembered when they were in the car and they were talking about, she asked him for lunch, or he asked her for dinner and she couldn't because of the raid. And then she asked him if he could do anything, but they couldn't. But she was on her phone and he would glance at it a few times. And so I don't know if something is bothering him. Maybe he's just thinking about his ex-wife and what did she do before, and how did he not know? Was he not paying attention? And now he's paying attention and he's like, what's going on? Is it, and again, I don't think he's being honest with himself, because if he was being honest with himself, then he would realize that he doesn't need to worry about those things because they're not in a relationship. And
my not girlfriend is maybe talking to someone else on the phone.
Exactly. So he's not thinking clearly, and he's not being honest with his feelings, because this shouldn't be an issue to him if he really did believe in his contract.
Yeah. I think
he was ever like it with Ava.
Sorry, say that again.
Do you think he was ever like that with Ava?
Probably not. I don't think he had the same expectations of her.
Because as soon as she showed interest in him, he broke it off.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a possibility, but I really think the whole point of seeing Charles in those other relationships was how standoffish he really was with them, and it was literally just physical. I mean, they even made a comment about, would you like to cuddle? And don't be ridiculous. That's, it's just, we're not doing that. It's just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and out you go. Or thank you, sir, I should say, because that was how Rosewood was acting, and I feel like that's how he was with, I think that's why we were shown that, is to see how he distanced himself emotionally from any relationship. It was literally just to satisfy physical desires.
Yeah, I think he's I mean, you could relate it to jealousy and like, maybe concern over like being cheated on again.
Possessiveness.
I thought it was simpler. I thought it was just like, he's like, I'm here, pay full-time attention to me,
But she literally closed it and then put it down. So if that's the case, then I would think that is her paying attention to him. So I don't know if that's
true.
Because if she was just still on her phone, just a minute, Charles.
Right.
That would be more, I'm here, hello.
Fine, okay.
Instead, it's more of, oh, Charles, you're here. And she's paying attention, and he's like,
who are you talking
you put that away really quickly, and did you not want me to see something? I don't know. I don't know what's going on in his head, but that's why I think the chains, something big happened to have the chains in the back.
I wonder if we'll learn that he like read through his wife's text message with the guy afterwards. Maybe that's why phones are particularly triggering to him. Maybe they have,
or like he remembered that like she used to do that often too.
I think it's probably more hindsight, because I don't know if she would let him have her phone at that point. Unless he stole it.
I mean, he could have just you know, even if she didn't let him, he could have taken it, or like, you know, when she wasn't there. Or
Absolutely.
something. He's not dumb. He's a tech guy, right? Like I'm sure he can manage.
I hired a private investigator, pull all our text messages so he could read them. I don't know.
So she asks him, is everything all right? And then he jumps and he kind of comes back to himself. And she's like, Charles? And he's like, don't worry yourself about it, Bunty. Instead, and now he tosses, we're getting into some controversial territory here, but he tosses her blanket aside and she's like, turns a little red, right? A little blushy, and she's surprised.
Tosses it right onto Bowser. Did you see that?
Yeah, poor
cute.
puppy.
Poor Bowser.
I didn't notice. It's so cute.
He's
like,
like, you don't need to see this.
Right?
Hide your eyes,
Hide your eyes.
you innocent little puppy.
Oh, so cute.
Marshall in the background. Don't, not in front of the baby.
Yes.
Exactly. Oh, that one time when he was when they were in the kitchen and Bowser's just looking at them and he's touching her and he's just
Yeah.
what? Yeah, that was a not in front of the baby moment.
Yeah.
Mhm. We have cats, right? So sometimes you know, they sleep in our bedroom by like very often. And it's like something like, should I kick them out? Like, is it okay?
The dog looks over and is looking at you and you're just like, don't look at us. This is making me feel uncomfortable. Go away.
I think dogs have a higher level of understanding than cats. I'm pretty sure my cats are completely oblivious. They're probably be like, yeah, if I want to go out, like I don't care what you're doing, just let me out. Like,
You're doing it while I'm in the room. I'm leaving.
So he tosses the blanket aside and grabs her legs, and like, let's enjoy each other's company, and then whoop, yanks her down. And Sam is like, whoa, and she's like, Charles, wait, tonight could we? And he grabs her waist and he's like, what is it, Bunty? And he has a very like sex
Yeah.
He's leaning, if you guys have seen that movie.
Yeah, you just
Very
see his eyes
predatory,
are
isn't it?
furrowed. You know what he's like, that's the only thing he's thinking about. It was like, sex. That's what I'm thinking about. He's like in sex mode, not in like emotions mode, for whatever reason, whether it's like, you know, similar to what he was thinking before, like, you know, he needs to let off steam and this is his way of doing it. But he's like, boom, blinders, sex blinders.
It's kind of also a continuation of how they were this morning because she was trying to convince him to stay.
Yeah.
And he's, I'm here now. And he is deflecting because he just had a moment with the phone thing and she
Mhm.
kind of caught him at it. And he's like, all right, we're going to do something else then. We're going to pay attention to something else. And she was asking about what he'd been doing. And so I think he's also just trying to deflect as well.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I don't know about you guys. I've definitely seen this happen. Like, Yoel has done it once or twice. Doesn't want to think about his emotional issues. He's like, let's have sex. Great. And yeah, and I definitely know other people who don't want to think about their feelings and will do anything but, you know, distract themselves with whether it's sex, whether it's alcohol, whether it's work, whether it's reading, movies, whatever. A lot of people need to distract themselves from their very painful feelings, and they'll do anything but think about them. So she's like, tonight could we? And she's like, could we cuddle? And you know, she's hesitant, she's blushing, and Sam's still, and sorry, Charles is still in his like, this is sexy times mode. He's just smirks at her and he's like, cuddle, we can cuddle afterwards if you like. And she's like, no, I mean, could we cuddle instead of having sex? I'd like to be close with you. And again, Charles is still in his mode. He is not receptive right yet.
To be fair,
Mhm.
I can totally see why this is happening.
Why?
Because I've seen me and my husband so many times. It's actually really annoying where I am in the mood and he's not, or he's in the mood and I'm not. And so we get into this playful mood. It's like, I'm gonna get all snuggly and I'm gonna touch you here. And then it's just like, I'm no. And then we don't get it until somebody's actually, no, I've got a headache. I'm really not in the mood. So for me, this is very similar to what he's done in the past. It's his sexy talk. And she's shy and insecure, and that's what she's doing here. And so he's playing into it, and he's doing exactly what they've always been doing. Now, I believe he's doing it because he's deflecting from other things, but what he's doing right now, and a lot of people were kind of up in arms that he's being very forceful, but I think it's because we knew what Sam really wanted and he didn't yet. He didn't catch it. And then, to be fair, I think a lot of people needed one more panel to explain the transition a little bit, because a lot of people were really wondering what happened in this. We
Right.
can continue,
We'll get to that in a
but
sec.
yeah.
So I do think, let's just finish the panel and we can have the discussion about it. He says, she says, I'd like to be close with you. And he's like, we couldn't be much closer, Samara. And he's got that lustful look in his eye, the little smile, kind of leaning in closer. She's blushing. He's like, we couldn't be much closer than when I'm inside of you.
I hate that. Oh,
See, and me and my husband, we've talked to each other like that, and it works for us, and we're silly like that. And to me, it makes me giggle and it makes me laugh, and we think it's ridiculous. And it's just, yeah.
No, I hate it. No, if Monsieur de Sparkle said that to me, I'd be like, "Bleh, get out."
It's like, well, now I'm really not in the mood.
Yeah, no, 𝗪𝗆 is the crudest guy. 𝗪𝗆's a massive troll. Like, he will say things on purpose just to be as crude as possible, as annoying as possible, like as controversial as possible.
Me and my husband together.
Yeah, no, he says this kind of stuff all the time, and now I say it back to him because it's been 12 years, and I'm like, what's the word? I take as good as you get, give as good as you get. I don't know. Now I do the same thing back to him, and I just say like shocking things too, because I'm like, this is what he thinks is funny. But yes, so no, we say this kind of very crude stuff too. I was just thinking about.
I think he legitimately said this to get this blush. He legitimately did it to get her to blush.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely doing it on purpose. This comes out at like 2 a.m. over here, and I don't sleep like a normal human. So I'm awake and I'm reading that line in bed at 2 a.m. and just going,
just to rub you the wrong way.
Right.
I'm going to use this line on my husband.
Let's all do an experiment. I know exactly how he would react. He'd be like, yes, and he would just like come closer and like make some fake sexy move. Yes.
I don't know. If you say that you're going to be inside him, that might,
Right. No, yes.
He's not into that. Sorry. I would have swapped it. It's like, you can't be much closer than when you're inside. Yeah. I would have swapped it because he's not into that.
Yeah.
It would be funny though.
It would be hilarious.
Wait, what?
My husband would get a kick out of that. We're just like that.
Well, now that we all know about, our sexual, experience with our husbands and what kind of humor they prefer.
Our kinks.
Right, or lack thereof. Like, as we did. So, he comes closer and he's staring her in the face, and she is biting her lips.
She bites her lip, though. That can be so misreading, though. That really can, because that's like a come hither moment. And so I can see how he could misread this.
Right.
But
Also,
you could read that panel either way, couldn't you?
You really could. Like, if you did not know, sorry, go ahead.
No, in the beginning, when I first read it, before I got to the next line, I thought that was like her being like, well, I find that sexy and I'm interested.
Yeah, her being, I did as well. I thought that was her being swayed.
If you saw that glow in her eyes, the lusty eyes, it would totally fit here.
Right.
It would totally fit. But that's because we don't see it, because she's not feeling that at this moment. And he doesn't see that yet.
He probably doesn't have the webtoon vision.
Well, I'm actually kind of sad because he apparently can see Sam's mom throwing stars, impaling her father. So I kind of feel like she should be able to see his green jealousy eyes, and he should be able to see her sexy eyes, but apparently not.
Also, if they've been together a week, like, how would he know to read her signals? They don't know each other's signals yet. So.
And she is a very shy person. Even when she's in the mood and she wants something, she's very shy. And this is very normal behavior for her. So to the people who are really, really upset, I kind of say, I can understand why it could be misunderstood. And 𝗏𝗀 had to get on and clarify something to a lot of people on this, and I think it just needed one more panel to fix this transition, to help people understand what had happened, because there were a lot of people who were like, what did he do to her?
So I do think he's being forceful. I do think he's like not paying enough attention to her. Like, I think that if he was in a better mood, he would have stopped earlier. Like, he would have been like, what, wait, Bunty, like, please explain, like, talk to me, Bunty. I think he would have said that earlier. I think the fact that he kept going is just showing he's not in a healthy frame of mind right now.
Well, he is doing it to deflect. So
Yeah.
he's not, maybe he's not really paying attention exactly, but this is literally seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, we're taking a half an hour to talk about it, but it's literally seconds. And so
he's playing a part, isn't he?
yes,
He's kind of reminding, well, before he came before he opened the front door, he kind of reminded himself, you know, and I am here for this reason. So I suppose he's just kind of like, you know, shut everything out. What did you call it, Mindy? Sex blinders.
Yeah.
sex blinders. I love that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's those sex blinders. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not a healthy person right now. So
No.
yeah. And then finally she makes herself much more clear, and she's like, Charles, please, and she bunts her head against his forehead.
I love this. It's like, it's literally, it's like she's got her horns up and she's standing up for herself. So I thought it was cute that it said bunt.
Her horns are growing
specifically.
in.
Yeah. So this is a good moment for her.
It is. She has to say no in, you know, in a way that he'll get it. And yeah, so it's great. And then but she immediately feels bad about it and apologizes, and she presses her forehead to his, which it already was there. And she's like, I'm sorry, because, you know, she had that, I think, the self-preservation instinct where she's like, I have to stop him. Right. And, you know, so
she wasn't in the mood. She didn't want to. Yeah. Right.
And, but she feels bad about it right away because she's a nice person. She also just like punched him in the head, basically, you know, like, so, but I think that's also part of her character where she, and maybe I think is overly apologetic. Like, I wouldn't apologize if you know, I would just be like, no, no. So, but you know, that's her character. She has to learn to stand up for herself and not apologize for having an opinion, right? And he's like, Samara, what has happened for you to act this way? And now he goes back, right? He gets himself off of her, and he's asking a question, communicating. And she says, I've had a lot on my mind today, and it would really be helpful if we could just hold each other like a quiche. And she's hesitant, right? She's
holding back here. This would have been a perfect moment for her to open up a little bit more, and she doesn't. And the sad thing is that's why in this next panel we see Charles acting suspicious, because she is hiding something. It's not what he's thinking, or what he's assuming, but she is hiding something, and it is triggering to him because he knows when she's lying. She can't lie to him.
She's not lying, she's withholding information.
Exactly, but he can still sense that. We've seen him call her out. It's like, if you can't be honest with me, if you can't tell me what's going on, how can I fix it? And instead of being open about that like he has in the past, he's more reserved because he's in this trigger mode.
Right. And this is where both of their flaws are feeding off of each other and like triggering each other.
Yeah.
And this is very normal and very human. I mean, I'm thinking back to all of Yola and I arguments. Like, obviously over the years, we've learned to like improve, and we've learned to, you know, not fall into our bad habits, but oh my gosh, the amount of work that it has taken has been enormous.
I know. Life would be so much different if I had to like relive high school with what I know now. It'd be like, I'm not even gonna have to give you the time of day. You're a waste of my time.
Why
I'm gonna go over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, life would be very different.
Right. And they're, you know, this is the beginning of the relationship, and this is where they are now, and they both need to work on themselves.
Yeah.
So he's being triggered because she's not telling him, she's too not confident to tell him, you know, what she really thinks or feels. And it's kind of getting into a bad cycle. And
I just feel like they cuddle, and I feel like they could have talked. I mean, that's pillow talk, but it kind of seems like they didn't get to the issues. It would have been a perfect time to do it, and they didn't.
I'm laughing because I remember when I first got married, I always say like, Yoel did not have the greatest of childhoods, and I was like, you have to go to therapy, you have to talk to me, talk to me, talk about it. He didn't want to talk about it. Years and years and years and years and years. Finally, I gave up, and it's like, you know, whatever, over time, like, I think he's processed it some more and blah, 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 and now he's open to therapy, but like, and she is going to it, but it's like, I begged him, right, you know, like, talk, and he didn't want to talk because we're not always ready to talk.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, when they don't know each other that well yet. Sometimes it's really difficult to even know like what language that you want to be using in a situation like this, because she uses, I mean, she says 𝗪𝗁, doesn't she? She's, you know, I just want 𝗪𝗁, and she's trying to kind of, she's appeasing him. She's just got into, and this is behaviorist brain now, she's just got into appeasement, and it's just kind of, you know, I don't want to do this, but also I don't want to make you uncomfortable or upset or you know, change.
So do you think she really just wanted to be close, or do you think she was just like, I just want to be close because that's all I'm willing to do right now?
Yeah.
Because there's some times where I really want just to snuggle.
Yeah.
I just want to snuggle. And it's really, so I guess I'm just wondering, do you feel like she was comfortable with the cuddling, or do you think it was awkward for her because?
I think she's deflecting. So she's gone, okay, so I, you know, after the conversation that she'd had with Marshall, she is now kind of thinking more about, you know, perhaps, do I want more? Don't I want more? And this is almost her kind of testing the waters, I suppose. But I think she's just, you know, the situation got uncomfortable very, very quickly for her. And her reaction was not very mild, but it was still violent, and that probably shocked her because she's not a physical person. And then sometimes, you know, when you have situations like this, yeah, and you see it with animals a lot. Sorry, I'm an animal behaviorist, not a person behaviorist, but you see it a lot with animals. So you'll find that animal that is much lower down in the kind of in the pecking order might lash out and go, wait, stop that, don't want you to do that anymore, and, you know, a little bite or a little nip or something, but then they'll just kind of drop and go, all right, but yet you're still in charge, but I don't want you to do that, but I am still, you know, subservient, submissive even. So
yeah, what she's doing, she's a puppy.
yeah, she is, and it is very puppy behavior, you know. It's kind of testing boundaries, but also being very kind of, you know, I still recognize that you're
the alpha.
Yeah, I always try to avoid that term, but yeah, it's oh, don't get me started on it. Yeah, I think it's a very kind of, you know, submissive on her part, and it's appeasement behavior. Yeah.
It's interesting that you questioned Sabra whether she actually wants the cuddle or if she's just offering it as an acceptable alternative. I thought that she actually did want to cuddle.
Well, I thought she did, because the way she says it at the beginning, I thought we just cuddle, but
right. And I think also because to her, cuddling represents warmth, and, you know, she's trying to figure out what's our relationship like, and and she wants the warmth, right? So I think she's like, okay, I want that part of him.
I already think that her love language is touch, not sex, but touch. Because that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think she wants to experience the part of him that she likes, the nice part, the sweet part. So she's like, but then as soon as she's like, if that's okay, right? Which is like, why are you, they're like, you know, the fact that she's asking it in such a hesitant manner is very sad for me to see. I'm like, girl, you can ask to have cuddles. It's okay. Don't feel bad. It's fine. And then the next thing she does is like, or we could have sex instead, which is like
appeasement behavior.
Yeah, and this is where people went nuts, because the next panel, a lot of people assumed that they really did have sex, and that
I wasn't sure. When I read it, I was like really 50-50. I was like, I have no idea. I didn't see any indication for if they had.
And I think 𝗏𝗏 pointed out that they still had their clothes on, and that Charles's hair is still relatively nicely made, but
that's not just proof to me. I usually put my gold deck on, so that's just
exactly. Also, exactly,
like,
which is why there was confusion. That's why there was confusion, and she had to go online and say, no, once he knew that she was not, that's not what gets him off. She had to let people understand this is not his
What gets
flaw.
him off? Was
Yeah.
what she said.
He has flaws. This is not one of them. He's not into pressuring subservient women into sex. I mean, if you look at all of the women that he's been with, they've been very domineering people. And
Yeah.
he doesn't get off on, he doesn't want to be not wanted.
Mhm.
You know, that's the whole thing that would be triggering for him. If somebody didn't
Right.
want him, he wouldn't want to be in that situation at all. So I thought it was a little sad to see. I was sad that so many people were triggered by this. It was a little sad to see so much
I don't know if sad is
trauma.
the right word, because okay, fine, it's sad to see, I guess, that people have gone through those experiences.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting at. It was like it was sad to see so many people reminiscent of somebody who was pressuring, and it felt triggering to
Mhm.
them. And that I hope most of those people were able to see 𝗏𝗀𝗋's clarification on
Right.
that, so that maybe it could calm their poor hearts.
Yeah,
So.
and especially like 𝗏𝗀𝗋 has been so hot, has had so many healthy messages about sex throughout this.
Yeah,
like, you know,
exactly.
𝗏𝗏𝗃 is fantastic. So,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, it's obviously fully possible to build a story in which Charles has this issue, but this is not what is happening.
That's what she says, that she does not like writing stories like that. So that's not going to be something that comes up in her stories, I assume.
Yeah.
And that's not his flaw.
I'm laughing because I read so many, not necessarily on Webtoons, but on other platforms, but some on Webtoons too, where the theme is like the man gets like insanely like there's no consent, and I'm like,
Ugh.
I
Yeah.
have spoken about this before, and so I won't get on my soapbox, but there are so many problematic comics on Webtoon, and some of them really are well beyond kind of an acceptable place, in my opinion. But unfortunately, they seem to be popular for whatever godforsaken reason, and it legitimately terrifies me that young people have access to this romanticized, male dominated kind of.
The sad thing is that those comics are mostly read by women.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's almost like they're training themselves to think that that's okay.
Yeah,
and it's sad.
Yeah, I mean, the web, obviously, like, I'm a creator and I've been pulled a couple of times, but you know, when you do go through the community guidelines and things, it's supposed to be for 13 years up. And if you think about a 13-year-old reading a story where it's quite one of the big tropes is like two men fighting over one woman, and she doesn't get any say in any of it at all. And it's the whole Twilight thing, isn't it? You know, the Twilight book's incredibly damaging. And yeah, I just find it very upsetting, but I'll stop now because I should go on with it. I think 𝗏𝗀𝗋 has done a really fantastic job at writing a romance without having to include something like that.
I think that's why she was so insistent on getting on and fixing the confusion ASAP, because I mean, I literally read it and I didn't think they had sex, but
yeah, I didn't, but I could see how you could.
I could, yeah. But I don't think it was 20 minutes until I saw the clarification or something like that. It felt fast, and I was just like, oh well. Yeah.
But you know, you said, you know, you just needed one more panel would have done it, or even just a speech bubble that said, "Okay, Bunty."
Even like that's not going to happen, you know, because he was very the way she posted it. I should have had it handy so I could just read exactly what she said. But but that's one of the reasons why I liked Charles to begin with, was because this wasn't an issue. And so to have a lot of people question that, it was like, no, I hope that's not where she's going. And I was very grateful for the clarification, and that's not.
Right, so here's the clarification. Seems to be some confusion with LP 176. Sam and Charles didn't have sex, they cuddled. Hence why in the jump cut, they were still clothed and Charles's hair wasn't a mess. Charles would never coerce or pressure someone into sex. That would be the opposite of what gets him off. And once it was clear that Sam wasn't just being shy or insecure, he backed off of his sexually playful manner and poor attempt at redirecting the previous discussion.
See, she even talks
Redirecting.
about his deflection. So
Mhm.
I feel like she had such a clear path in her head of what had happened. I wish we'd had a chance to see it. I wish that those panels had been in there to clarify, because she's got so many clear, concise points on how she knew that transitioned, but we didn't get to see it. So
Yeah. But I mean, it is one of the reasons that I love comics, is that you can interpret the same panels in 20 different ways.
oh heavens, I know that.
Fantastic medium. You can sneak so much more into a comic than you could into a book. Or
Interesting. That's interesting.
you know.
Because it mimics real life where you have to interpret what you're seeing rather than in text. You kind of have to spell it out a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I like to be really horrible, and I will purposefully draw panels that make people go, ah, that's what it is. Oh, no, actually, that's what it is.
You like messing with their minds. That's awesome.
I see the
I
joy.
do.
The glee is apparent.
Yeah.
I need to see your stuff. I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's slowly, actually, we're slowly moving off of Webtoon now. But all the first 6 episodes are up on Global Comics, all redrawn and beautiful now. And looking much better over there. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm always very impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. By the way, Krystine, I don't think we heard from you. Did you think they had sex when you first read it?
Okay, so for me, it wasn't that it was triggering. It was more that I was just like, oh, Charles is being like pretty pushy. Like, I didn't like that. For me, like, it was more like upsetting that he was being pushy rather than like triggering. But like, and like I had to do a double take like after like I was like, oh shit, they really had okay, they're still close. So
Yeah.
like I see both sides of it. Like for me, when I first read it, I was kind of like not really like like offended, but just like, oh, I was kind of uncomfortable with that. I guess. Yeah.
I guess that's why I wish we would have had that other panel so we could have seen Charles's real reaction to it,
Yeah.
because I feel like it was too up for interpretation, I guess. Was his mind really pushing, or was he sexually bantering, and he was just trying to be sexually silly, I guess. I can't think of the right word. And Mongi used a word, I can't remember what she said, but sexually playful, I can't remember. But because of the way it was written and because we don't get to see the full process, it does seem pushy. It does seem pushy, because we know that Sam's serious, and we haven't quite seen that he doesn't know that. So
I thought it was pushy. I could see it being either way. I could see it being sexually playful. But I actually thought he actually was pushy. And I thought that was just his flaw. That was something that, because he was not able to pay attention to her cues because he was so focused on his need.
But he's been like this before, and he's gotten good responses. That's why I'm like, I can see and I can understand the confusion, because I mean, their first kiss, that could be construed as pushy, but holy Hannah, that was amazing for me. I thought that was amazing. The first kiss where he I mean, she could have responded like, it just depends on how you respond. And then when she was telling him, when they were walking up the stairs, I understand, I was trying to be too close, and I understand it's not a relationship, and she just kept talking, and he's trying to interject on how he really feels, and then they walk in. What he did there could be construed as pushy, and it wasn't until things were progressing and he's, are you okay with this, and do you want me to stop? And you see that he is looking for consent, but I can see how his sexual playfulness seems pushy, but because he's gotten such good responses to it, It reminds me of how me and my husband goof off, how we make sexual innuendos to each other all day and we enjoy it. And so for me, that's what I see when I see this, but I can definitely see how it seems pushy, but it's also not out of his wheelhouse. I guess I should say that. His behavior is not out of his wheelhouse and it's not abnormal, and we've accepted it in other scenarios without really questioning it before.
So,
But she was uncomfortable, and so we question it this time.
but
Sure.
I also think that the difference is not just, I agree that behavior can in other situations be just regular playful, 100%. Like he's like that. My husband and I also do that. It's funny. But I think that in this particular situation, his feelings of like whatever overwhelming feelings he's dealing with, I think they are making him do it from a perspective that he's not noticing her cues rather than he's being playful. I think that,
And I can
go ahead.
I can totally see that, because there's something else that happens coming up that in normal everyday life, if it happened, it wouldn't be an issue. But it's the feeling that he goes into it that makes it shady.
Mhm.
It's the yeah. So we can just, I don't want to go into it, but
Right.
it's literally the exact same thing that you were talking about.
Yeah, so what happens now is, we see the phone on the counter and we see them cuddling. They're on the bed. Charles is on the bed, holding her. She's holding on to him.
I do want to point out one quick thing.
Mhm.
Look how much he's enjoying the cuddling.
Yeah.
See, he was perfectly fine just cuddling. So I think that was this cute little smile, and he's holding her shoulder. He's enjoying his quiche. I don't know how to pronounce it. But I think with Mongi's clarification and then seeing his reaction just right here in this moment, the special moment that he feels like he's having with Samara right here, it just reminds me he's okay with this. He would have been okay cuddling. He just needed to realize that she didn't want sex right then.
Yeah, it's very sweet. It was very sweet to see. She's like stirring, nuzzling into his neck, and he's stroking her neck. It's really sweet.
But we only get a sweetness for just a few seconds.
Yeah. Because now her phone vibrates, and Charles looks at it, and just the expression that he looks at it is like worried already.
Yeah, he's got like one of his little worried sweat drops.
It's like it's such an abnormal reaction, right? Like a normal person's like, okay, your phone's vibrating, like, and
he's having triggers with her phone.
And then he turns to look at her, and she's just sleeping. And now he turns again, and he's just like semi-glare on. Like,
is it determined? Like, I'm gonna figure this out.
Yeah,
kind of moment.
That's what I think too. Like, what's going on? Why is her phone vibrating?
It's late. It's not that late, but it's late, and I'm with her right now, and it's our moment. Who's interrupting?
The whole argument about like how appropriate is it to text someone at 10:21? I'm laughing because like I've been
you don't want somebody to text you at that time. Put on do not disturb. Yeah, no,
my phone doesn't make any noise, and like I turn all notifications off. Like, you can text me at whatever time you want. I don't care. I only will see it if I open my phone. Like
exactly.
I regularly, I don't sleep. And one of my sisters does not sleep either, so we will regularly have conversation at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And somebody pointed out that someone pointed out that she and Marshall are gamers, and gamers stay up super late.
And in fact, he was keeping her awake, wasn't he? Because he was gaming all night doing his videos. Yeah.
So to me, that was kind of like a tomato. It's whatever you feel.
Like, I wish my goal in life is like, sure, I'd love to be sleeping by 10:30. Hilarious. I wish. I haven't finished doing anything by 10:30. I like go to bed earlier now than I used to, but I was like always sleeping at 4:03. Like 10:20.
Well, and I'm always like watching my kids, and finally they go to bed, and I'm like, I'm free. I can do something. Yeah, I can do whatever I want. And then all I want to do is sleep. But of course, I stay up till midnight. Just should just go to sleep, but I don't. So.
Yep. So okay, fine. So we don't think 10:21 is late.
No.
And so
if it said 1:21 a.m., then maybe I'd understand that. But even then, it's like somebody can text whenever they want to text.
Yeah. So he picks up her phone, opens it, looks at it, and he sees a message from martial law I hope you're feeling better tonight, Sam. Just knock if you need to chat again. Right? Very sweet, very nice. And you see the reflection in the phone of his green, jealous, sweaty face.
Yep.
And he looks at it.
I
and
feel like
glares at it.
I feel like he feels his suspicions are confirmed because he was suspicious about something happening. And now Marshall's saying, I hope you're feeling better, which means Marshall knows something about how she was feeling that Charles doesn't. And I can see how that would make him, upset, and how he'd feel like, see, I was right to be suspicious. Something happened that I don't know about, and she wasn't honest with me about it. And I'm not saying this was right, but I'm like, I can see why he's starting this little spiraling moment.
Yeah, I think it's, I kind of assumed his mind went straight to what is going on with her and Marshall. Like, she and Marshall have a relationship. Oh my gosh. Like, I thought he was like straight into that, like super jealous mode, like assuming the worst. It's not even worse. They're not exclusive.
Maybe he is.
Like, she could be sleeping with Marshall too. Like, they're not in a relationship. Like,
do you really think he's actually thinking that far right now? Because he was looking at them in the hallway, and he had the green jealous eyes, and it was even that. It's like they're getting close. He's paying attention to her.
Worse.
And this is what I used to see my wife doing with my friend, and it was okay before, but maybe I shouldn't be okay with this now. And Sam's just so not a very promiscuous person. So for him to think that she's already having sex with somebody else when she just barely figured out that seems a bit far. But
I don't think Charles has thought
he's not thinking clearly though.
His feelings at all at this moment. He doesn't know why he's jealous.
Exactly.
He just, he's just reacting in the moment. That's what his hormones are doing. That's what his brain is doing. He doesn't know why he feels jealous. He doesn't know if Marshall is a threat or if it sounds like he's just kind of gone, I don't like the proximity of, because Marshall is right next door, I don't like something, but I'm not sure he has even formulated what it is yet.
That's exactly what I was thinking earlier. Like, he doesn't get it. And so a lot of people were talking about how it's a red flag, and I get how jealousy is a red flag, but Sam cannot tell Marshall, Charles is super jealous and Charles is very possessive of me. She can't say that because she hasn't seen that.
No, she doesn't.
That is not a flag that's been waved in her face yet, because these are the first times he's ever been feeling it.
Yeah.
He, after everything went down with his ex-wife, he literally froze himself. Like, all of his feelings are chained up tight. He froze his heart and he wrapped him around this shield of his wedding ring, not because he was still in love with his wife, but because this is what happens when you trust someone. It's just, he shut himself down as far as he could shut down. And like you were saying, Mindy, he didn't process anything. He completely pushed it away. And then we were really happy when we saw the hearts melting and things. It was very fuzzy and warm. And then we were hoping that it was a healing process, but what we forgot is that he hasn't healed yet. So the healing process is just thawing out his pain as well. And that's why he's starting to have these nightmares. That's why he's starting to have those trigger moments. It's not because he always had it. It's new. This is all new behavior. The jealousy is new. The possessiveness is new. The trauma, the shaking is new. This is all new because he is thawing out. She is bringing out all of this. Now, he's still chained up sometimes, but we've seen him drop those chains every now and again. And that means more now that we know the chains are connected to his ex-wife. So anytime we see him actually drop those chains, that is actually more important now than it was before, because we didn't realize how connected to the ex-wife it really was. So to people who say that it's red flags, yes, jealousy and possessiveness are red flags, but Sam cannot call these red flags yet because she does not see them.
No, we have to remember that we're looking at it from the outside. We're looking into the situation, and if Sam's never had a relationship before, then she doesn't know what red flags that she should be looking for.
I would hope she would.
Anyway, she's gonna have some kind of I'm not saying she's stupid, nothing like that, but she is gonna have she's gonna be naive about these things, isn't she?
She has, I feel like she's a little bit of an empath as well because of, not as much as Vicky, as obviously, but because remember when she was talking about a heaviness with chains?
Yeah.
There's no physical, outwardly reason or conversation or anything that should cause her to feel that, but she can sense it. She can sense that weightiness. And I think that's really great for her to be able to tell. But again, the only things that she complained about with Marshall are very superficial, easy things to fix. And yet that's what she's afraid to talk to him about.
Yeah.
And she hasn't seen these other things that are popping up because he hasn't had a chance to process them because he didn't give himself a chance to. So to me, this moment right here of him looking at the phone, it's a lot more mild than it could have been. Like,
Yeah.
it could be so more explosive. I mean, if this happened, if her phone was sitting on the counter and she was in the other room and it buzzed and he picked it up and said, "Oh, you just got a message from Marshall." Nobody would have thought twice of it. But it's the feeling that we see and the green eyes. It's like, it's the feeling going into it that makes it different. It's like you are specifically looking for something because you don't trust her about something, but he doesn't even realize he's doing it. But that is why it's shady, is because of the feelings that are going into the action.
Well, I guess here's a good time to ask, like, I saw a lot of people have different opinions on whether it's acceptable to pick up he's not even her partner, but let's say, is it acceptable? What do you guys think about picking up, partner's phone and looking at it? Because I think that
I talked to my husband about it specifically, actually, today before the podcast. I was like, "Honey, does this bother you?" And I picked up his phone and looked at it and put it down. He's like, "What?" He was so confused. He didn't even know I was. And I was like, if you were at your friend's house and your buddy and he picked up your phone and looked at it, how would you feel?
Yeah.
He did not care whatsoever. Now, some people are very private people and they don't want anybody touching their phone. So I can understand that. But to be so adamant about it, like crazy adamant about it, I kind of wonder why. Like, somebody said that they don't even look at their husband's phone, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why is it scary? Why is that a bad thing? But I guess it's just, I don't know.
I don't know if there were enough responses for me to gauge, but I feel like it's kind of a 50-50 split among people. But what do you guys, like I said, we have Sabra's opinion. Sadie and Krystine, what are your feelings on that?
I don't care. Like, pick up my phone, use my phone, whatever.
Because he didn't unlock it. He just
no. And I know a couple of people that are really funny about what gets looked at, not on their personal phones, but on their work phones.
Oh, definitely work phones.
Just because of the line of work that they're in, and they have their phone set that, so if someone did pick it up and just look at it, it will say one new message, but it won't tell you who the message is from, and it doesn't tell you what the message is. And so I think, if Sam was going to have a real serious problem with people looking at her phone, then perhaps she would have it set up like that.
Yeah, it's funny because when I saw this, I was like, my phone had like all notifications off. I hate notifications, despise them. So it never makes a sound. Nothing ever pops up on the screen. It's like you have to actually open the app to see anything. So like this screen of like the Marshall's message, it would never happen on my phone. And it's not because I'm private. I just don't like things popping up. I'm like, it's distracting. Anyway, totally inconsequential information.
Krystine?
I'm kind of so the way me and my fiance text, we're very cutesy when we text each other, and I don't necessarily want other people like unlocking my phone and seeing like the notification being like, "Oh, what's that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's cringy." Like, I don't that's between me and him. Like, I don't need other people seeing it. So like I do have that setting, like Sadie said, where like if I get like a text, it just says one new message.
Yeah, I actually did talk to my husband about it. I'm like, if you were a lawyer and you had clients that I couldn't know anything about, it'd be totally different. I wouldn't be looking at your phone because you've got possible confidential information. But we do not have that type of positions and jobs, and we don't have that kind of fear. My husband, I could unlock my phone. My husband could look at everything under the sun. He was teasing me. He's like, just don't look at my Amazon account. I'm like, honey, we share the same Amazon cart. Like, okay. Yeah, I can literally look at your browser on my phone. You know? So I think you're right. I think it's really person to person. I'm sure there's definitely plenty of people out there where that's a big deal. And granted, I wouldn't go up in like a grocery store and pick up somebody's phone off of the counter and look at it. That's totally invasive. But if somebody was just visiting my house and I got a message and it vibrated and they picked it up and looked at it, I wouldn't care. But the reason it's shady is because of it. We know
Right.
how he's feeling.
Mhm.
And I kind of get from it that Samara knows something's up because of the way she responds. I don't
Right.
think she's the kind of person who would care. Maybe she is, but I don't think, I really honestly think it's kind of maybe her empath self coming in. It's like, what are you doing with my phone?
Mhm.
Right. Like that's the thing. Like I normally, if my husband picked up my phone, looked at it, I was like, I could also couldn't care. But if he was looking at it and be like, I want to see if you're texting any guys, I would be like, excuse me, give my phone back, right? Because it's the intention. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's
Yeah.
looking at the phone, and now we hear Charles, and he jumps. Oh my God, his face there is, man, like,
Guilty.
I feel
Yeah.
like this is like a come to Jesus moment. It's like
Right.
where he's like really realizing I've
Shit,
kind
I
of
have-
screwed up here.
Yeah.
What am I feeling? Like you were talking about that he doesn't see what he's doing yet. He
Mhm.
doesn't recognize the jealousy yet for what it is.
Mhm.
He knows he feels crappy about whatever's happening, but he doesn't understand it yet. Now he's starting to get called out on it, and that's the whole
Mhm.
fear in this face of it.
Yep.
So have we talked about trigger stacking before?
Oh, can we just do the last two panels and then we'll do it? Talk about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is like, she is up and she's looking at him with like concern. She's like, what are you doing with my phone? And he is completely shocked. He is, whoa. He's like aghast. His eyes have gone colorless. He's like, Samara, he panics, and the end.
And we only have one more episode after this.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Juicy.
All right. So what were you saying? It was
Sadie,
trauma.
trigger
What?
or something.
Trigger stacking is
Trigger stacking?
trigger stacking. So it's all to do with like trauma response and things like that. But effectively what happens is, if you're having a bad day and you stub your toe on something, and that is so small and insignificant compared to everything else that has happened, but you explode at that one thing.
Yeah.
That's you reaching your threshold with your trigger stacking. So through those last few panels throughout this episode, I can just see, these triggers, it's just building up and it's building up. And now, right at the very end, I feel like we've hit Charles's threshold, and what happens next could potentially be quite explosive, because it might be a very, very small thing, but because he can't look at his own behavior from the outside, he hasn't realized yet the dangerous position that he's in, and that he's essentially putting Sam in, so like emotionally, not necessarily physically, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. Right now this is mostly just emotional.
Yeah. And all of these little nibbly bits, they might seem insignificant one at a time, and I'm sure Sam would have at some point been picking up on this, and like you say, she's recognized that he's picked up the phone and he's glared at it, and she's immediately gone, that's that is an abnormal thing. And
I'm just hoping that there's a conversation, but it's got to be, I feel like it's going to be dramatic somehow.
Yeah.
What big moment can we see that's at work? And that's what made me think maybe we're going to get a moment with Mr. Lawson, because Mr. Lawson technically works with Mr. Young. He's their lawyer. We have never seen them together, but it has been mentioned at the hospital that Mr. Lawson is Mr. Young's lawyer. So I'm kind of wondering if he's going to pop up there, or I don't know. Or maybe we'll see Charles with Mr. Lawson and we'll be like, Charles, what crazy thing are you doing? And with Mr. Lawson, what shady act are you involved in? Or I don't know. But maybe we'll go to the workplace and then we'll do one of her backtracks. They'll think back to what happened.
Yeah, that's
bedroom.
what I was kind of thinking where you're going there. So, you know, that perhaps Sam comes in and she's looking, you know, super sad or whatever.
Peeved.
And then we kind of go back into whatever it is whatever the threshold event is.
Yeah, we'll see. Because like I said before, this moment of him looking at the phone, it is so much smaller than what it could be. If this is the moment where something happens, where she finds out about the jealousy and the possessive, where it just shines through, this is a very small trigger for it. And so I'm kind of wondering which way it could go. It could go crazy or it could go very small and benign.
I would think for a story drama, it should go crazy because, you know, it's more fun.
But it could also go deflecting. Like maybe he starts deflecting or something like that. I mean, hit the look on his face, I don't think it'd be a very successful deflection, but
obvious, right?
He's not playing it cool at all. It's like, you got a message.
Yeah. Hi, for you.
Yeah.
It woke me up from a nightmare. It's the look on my face.
That's why I'm
because I needed light.
I know. I don't know. So, I mean, it could be one of those moments where we think it's going to be the trigger moment, but we have a whole episode. So it could really be a small moment or it could be a big moment and it could change to a different scene.
So,
yeah, I mean, we might not see any resolution from the phone thing until next season. It might be, I know that would be really mean, but I keep telling you,
I have that feeling too.
It's interesting because my assumption was like we're gonna get a resolution next episode and like we're gonna know like Charles is gonna run away and like whatever, we're gonna know what happens to Charles and Sam. But remember last time Monkey left us on a cliffhanger, did they or didn't they have sex, or are they going to have sex or not? So maybe it's another cliffhanger.
Or like Midnight Poppyland, you know, think about the end of the first season and the start of the second season, which was like two completely different comics, wasn't it? Yeah. And you know, that I always find things like that a really interesting storytelling device.
Yeah.
You know,
she's gonna leave us hanging.
I don't think we're gonna see much resolution. If you know, perhaps we'll see a small interaction at work. So presumably Charles and Sam will be there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I feel like Mongi likes to leave us with more questions than answers at the end of the season. So I think you're right. I don't think we're going to get very many resolutions. I think we're going to be getting a lot more questions. Like, I feel like we're going to see a lot more trauma from Charles before we see any healing. And that's because literally the phone picking up thing and what we've seen from Charles, I feel like storytelling wise is too small. I feel like we need to see more pain from him before we can get the healing process going. But I'm also glad that she hasn't turned him into a villain, which a lot of people were jumping off of the charm train and onto the smash train because they were convinced that he was a turd bucket. And
so this gets into something I want to discuss because a lot of people were saying, you know, a person with such qualities I don't want to be with. Now, I thought about like this kind of thing a lot, right? Because, and we talked about this before, but we're all human, right? And we all have our flaws. And with our partners, sometimes we're like, you know, every person has to make a decision. Do I want to accept this package of benefits and detriments? Is this acceptable to me? Is this something I can live with? And, you know, I think about it because sometimes, like, let's say if we have people who are close to us, right? Whether it's friends or family, and let's say their partner ends up not wanting to be with them, right? So you love that person and you're like, you have compassion. You're like, I understand this person's flaws. I understand this person's working on them, blah, blah, blah. But you can understand their partner's decision to be like, I cannot tolerate this. I can't accept it. I'm not their sister. I'm not their son. I'm not their mother. I'm not their best friend. You know, this is not, I don't want to put up with it. So it's interesting because we see Charles, right? We see his insides, we see his fears, we see his traumas. We have sympathy for him, and we want to stick it out. Like we want him to see him improve, work through his trauma, however long it takes, blah blah blah, and then he, you know, is a better person to be in a relationship with. But the question is, does Sam have to put up with him while he's going through this healing process? Like, it's not, does she have that obligation? Maybe she's like, no, I can't be with someone who acts like this right now. Doesn't mean that Charles is a bad person and you write him off. It could just be that at this moment in time, with this set of behaviors, I don't want to be with him, and I will wait, or we will wait as characters, as readers, to see him heal, and then, you know, he can be in a relationship.
It's like with Monica and Marshall. Like Monica's like, I don't like how you're acting right now. Maybe we should like separate, work on ourselves, and then
see if we can come back together, but it doesn't look like they did.
Sadly.
I know. I haven't seen them together for
I
a
mean,
while.
you could look at it from the other side as well. You know, Charles could always make the decision that I'm not in a healthy enough place to be in a relationship. And
He wants to be, otherwise he wouldn't feel the jealousy. He's to a point where his subconscious is wanting him to be able to move on and be in a relationship, but because he hasn't processed all of this, he's not ready.
Yeah, so perhaps perhaps he'll decide that he needs to go and work on himself and work through his trauma, and it will be his decision rather than Sam's.
Well, and that's kind of like Ruminate. He leaves.
Yeah.
And she pines for him. She misses him and she wants him. And maybe that's kind of what happens. Maybe he does leave. Maybe we have a friendship scenario with Marshall, and then maybe Charles decides to come back. Who knows? We don't know. But like what you were saying, Mindy, is somebody might have a moment and have something traumatic happen to them. And so they've got trauma. And that person is still a viable person to be with. But the caveat is the person that you're with has to be able to understand that trauma, and it can't be triggering for them. So, for example, Charles has a tendency for jealousy and possessiveness because of his previous relationship. He cannot be with somebody who is triggered by those kind of moments, even if it's all out in the open. Even if I'm sorry, I'm feeling jealous right now. I know I don't need to be afraid of this, but this is my trigger right now. Even if it's all out in the open, he cannot be with somebody who is triggered by those kinds of emotions. So you have to find somebody who's compatible with your trauma.
Right.
And you also have, I mean, personal preference and things that, like I was dating somebody who felt like they wanted to be in a relationship with a woman, but he had same-sex attraction to somebody, you know. And so for me, I couldn't be in a relationship like that because I'm like, I need to feel needed. I need to feel wanted. I need to feel desired. That's something that I need. And I know he got married to a woman. That was his choice. And I'm certain that he was very open with me about it. So I'm hoping that he was open with his wife about it. And that was something that she could understand and work with or whatever. But you need to have that kind of give and take. And so I know a lot of people are like, I cannot do anything, I can't have anything to do with what Charles is exhibiting. And I can understand that. I can understand that. There's a lot of people that would not have any desire to be around somebody who's jealous all the time. But my point was that Sam hasn't actually seen that yet. That side of him yet. She hasn't actually seen it yet. So for a lot of people who are calling it a red flag, I was like, I felt like it was very Minority Report-ish. It's like, you can't really tell me that it's a red flag when she hasn't seen it yet, you know?
Red flag for us, meaning we see it.
Like it's a red flag for us. I mean, obviously we're seeing his trauma show up and we want him to get it fixed. We want him to have therapy and we want him to be able to do all of those things. But the way they were saying it's a red flag and she should leave the relationship. I'm like, she hasn't seen it yet. She needs to see the red flags first. So that was kind of my spiraling moment with the red flags, and just we got to wait until Sam sees those red flags for it to come up in the storyline. So,
but I think also the fact that it brings up so strong emotions for people, I think it's a sign of very successful storytelling. I mean,
absolutely.
Like, it just brings up to me like the deepest issues about how me and my husband's relationship has been, and just noticing, you know, various relationships of other people that are very close to me. And it's hit so close to home, and it's very poignant. I think it's so deep, and so many stories in general, like very superficial. They like each other, they fall in love. It's like great. And this is so
very real.
Human life is so messy. We are so messy. And like the more, you know, deeper you go into like our 𝗪𝗪, like our livers, like the more messy you get. Like we're very flawed creatures. And I think for us, for people to expect to be like, oh, like I'm going to marry a perfect person and we're all going to live happily ever after, is so wrong. I mean, like I have discovered that the most I've discovered about myself has been through like me and Yoel's biggest arguments. And it's like, sometimes I look in the mirror and I don't like what I see. And I'm like, I cannot believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I'm acting this way. And, you know, you kind of have to go to the relationship with the person closest to you brings out the best and the worst in you. And that's just human life. And we have to grow and learn and just try to keep going up.
Yeah, completely agree. I think 𝗏𝗀𝗍, I think a lot of people were having issues with this episode because it did make them feel so much. And it did feel so real. And I think some people took it out on 𝗏𝗀𝗍, and I think that's very, very sad. And I hope everybody will take a moment and realize how well she's doing, and how deep these characters are. One of the reasons why I'm so into this is because these characters are so deep, because they have such a diverse, I mean, everyone's different. Everybody has their own different flaws and trauma, and it's intense and it's amazing, and it makes you feel so much. And I really appreciate that about what she does. And I hope she doesn't listen to the haters at all, and just understands how there's so many of us that do understand how well she's doing and how real she's making this world for us. And I appreciate that of her.
Right. I don't view people who are very concerned by Charles' behavior, I don't view them as hating the story. I think that they're just reacting very strongly to what's going on.
I'm only commenting, there's somebody was posting on Facebook that there was hate towards 𝗏𝗀𝗍 specifically. And I posted something along the lines that I think some people who feel like 𝗏𝗀𝗍 was changing Charles into a villain, I don't think they were really understanding why we are seeing these traits arrive in Charles. They are new traits. That's why people were kind of up in arms. It's like, this isn't Charles. You're right. This isn't Charles.
Yeah.
This is not Charles. This is new. And we didn't see this before because it was all frozen and hardened. He couldn't process this. So it's kind of like, she's not getting it wrong, guys. She's not getting it wrong. This is why it's coming to play. And we got to see the icky stuff before we can see the good stuff.
I loved what you said about how when he froze himself, he froze the negative feelings too. And when he's thawing, they're coming out. And I think that is so true. Like, in order for you to heal your pain, you have to dive into the pain. You have to face it. You have to swim with it. And like, and it looks so bad when you
what an amazing roller coaster ride it's been. Because do you remember, I mean, for those Chalmers fans, do you remember the goosebumps that you would feel when they got the first kiss, or the blushes that he kept on having whenever she would say something sweet to him? And we see the heart starting to thaw, and it was like, oh, it's so fuzzy and cute. And now we're like, oh, 𝗏𝗀𝗍, you're going to do it the real way. You're going to bring up what really happens when things like this come up to play. That's not fair. That's not nice. Stop it. You're making me panic. But it's true. It's true. When he's finally breaking down those barriers, now he's got to process all of the crap that he suppressed. And we got to see that first. And I really don't think 𝗏𝗀𝗍 is going to push Charles aside and be like, sayonara. She spent way too much time on him. I really believe we are going to see his full process. We need to see that moment where the wife or the control breaks free of the ex-wife's puppet hands. And when we need to see that moment where we see all of those emoticons being free from their chains. If we do not see that moment, it's going to feel so unresolved for me.
Yeah.
And those were such powerful moments. Every time we see Charles's emoticons, especially Charles's emoticons, they are such big moments. And if we don't get to see the resolution, that's going to feel very incomplete to me. But I don't think she's going to do that to us. I really don't.
I agree. I think Charles is going to have a healing path, and it's going to take a while. It's not going to be like one episode to the next. Give it time. That's how it
And
takes a
he
while.
might not end up with Samara. We want it. I mean, believe me, I want it. But
we believe it, Sabra.
really? I thought I was being subtle.
No,
I'm
I
not a
think
subtle.
you're
I'm not
wild
a
and
subtle
Sabra,
individual.
no.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. To everybody who's made it to this far into the podcast, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just we're gonna get to see some resolution with Charles. It might not end up with Sam. I kind of hope we get to see the process of him learning to love again. That's why I want it to be with Sam, because I don't see us getting that process with
With
anybody
someone
else
else.
with him, right? I can see maybe her doing like a flash forward and he has a family,
Right.
but with Charles, I really want to see that process. And that's why I hope it's with Sam. It's not necessarily Sam and Charles have to be together. It's because I want to see that process. And Sam is written in a way that she could literally be with anybody.
Yeah.
Don't you think she could be with Charles? She could be with Marshall. She could be with Monica. I mean, she could be happy with all these people, because I feel like when she puts herself into a situation, she just does it with all her heart. And if that person is compatible with her, then it would work. Charles cannot be with just anybody. Marshall, I don't think could be just anybody. But Sam, I feel like she's such a loving, caring individual that I feel like she could just embrace any relationship that she found herself in, if it was a positive relationship, obviously. But that's just my personal opinion.
I'm still sitting over here waiting for all the mythology to start to unfold.
Oh yeah, the Dionysus.
Because
you want to talk about it?
Yeah, Ariadne. Oh, that poor girl. It's gonna if Mongi goes down the mythological route, it's gonna be sad. We're gonna be mad. We're gonna hate man.
So describe it, please. I mean, we talked about it on the podcast before, but please tell us.
So, Ariadne, it's all to do with the Minotaur and the labyrinth and stuff like that. Ariadne is the daughter of
very
King
overprotective.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
She's the daughter of King Minos, of Crete, and his wife cheats on him with a beautiful bull, and that's how the Minotaur comes round. He then gets locked away in the labyrinth. Ariadne gives is it Theseus? Whoever the hero is, I always get the heroes, but it is Theseus, is it? Yeah. She gives him a ball of golden string to help him get through the labyrinth so he can find his way back out again. And she falls super
You could
hard.
kind of liken that to the golden string that we see. Remember how Charles's chains turned into that gold?
I thought that's what that was, which started filling me with horror and dread because I know what comes next. So Ariadne falls in love with Theseus, and he goes and he kills the Minotaur, and he's and then he leaves her behind on an island because he gets a better offer. He literally he's like, see ya.
And that could be.
He is getting an offer, we know.
Well, and there's a lot of theories that Charles will run away, and that's a very.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he chose to do in Ruminate.
I thought there was a Dionysus in the story, or he's not in the story.
He comes into play after she gets left on the island.
So what happens then? Right. I know we talked about it. I forgot. Because now that we know Diane is Marshall, I want to hear about it from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all. It's not all bad, but effectively, I think from the way that I'm looking at it, I'm seeing Charles as Theseus. He's going to leave, and then Dionysus, he's going to come and rescue Ariadne from the island. I hope.
So is that what happens? He rescues her? Do they end up together?
Yeah. Which is, and that's quite a nice bit of the story as well, because it's all kind of like, but I'm a god and I'm not supposed to be, hanging out with the mortals, and a bit of that as well. Actually, there is a really good, I will look up who wrote it. There is a really good novelization of it that I read.
Ooh, I'd like to read it.
Really
It just
quickly.
makes me think of one thing, because Monkey has always said that Sam is the hero of her own story. So I don't really feel like, if that's the path she takes, I don't feel like we're going to get a story where Marshall ends up being her hero.
Yeah.
But then again, you do get his version of Ruminate, where he seems to be more of a healing process for her.
Yeah.
But it's not, well, Charles is more of the healer because he literally brings her to life. But but Marshall, her experience with Marshall is her spirit is brought back into, it's released. That's what it is, because he sees the ghost. He sees the ghost, and he takes care of her remains and buries her remains, and then she's able to kind of float away, but she kisses him before she does, and then she's kind of released.
Yeah, and
Oh.
I've always thought that the ending, a possible ending is that she ends up with no one, right? The message is like, she's a strong, independent woman who don't need
She's
no
a
man.
strong person on her own. It's like, all
Right.
right, fine.
Or like, I've always had my classic, choose your
Can
own
you tell that
ending.
that's not what I'm looking for to?
Right. Yes. And
Bye.
my speculation has always been the choose your own ending story, right? Because she said it's not going to be anything, you've ever seen before. And I like choosing your own ending. That's my long-standing theory. So, this way everyone's happy, right? I think. So
Speak for yourself.
yeah, no, you can choose your own ending. Literally, you can choose Charles or Marshall, or maybe there's a third
she did
ending
say
of
that
no
she's
one.
going to do a flash forward, though.
Yeah, a flash
I know
forward
it's going to be a
of two different
flash
options.
forward with Angela and Link. There we go.
No, it could be a flash forward of like 10 years from now she's with Charles, 10 years from now she's with Marshall, 10 years from now she's with no one, or 10 years from now she's with random Joe Schmo off the street. Like, I don't know,
Multiverse style.
The multiverse. There you go.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That book is just called Ariadne,
You know what?
and it's by
It's going to be
Jennifer
all
Saint.
Vicky.
Ariadne, Jennifer, who?
Jennifer Saint.
Cool.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it.
I feel like I've read one of her novels. Not the one about Theseus and Dionysus, but I feel like I've read one of hers. I've read one about Hades and Persephone. I'll have to look and see who the author sounds very familiar.
I read a lot. And I love mythology, so I read a lot of mythological books. But
I've been having a lot of fun with the Hades and Persephone stories lately.
There are some fantastic Hades and Persephone stories out there. They are just brilliant. Yes.
Yeah, I've been having fun.
All right. Well, I think we've been at this for a while. Do we have any closing thoughts on this episode?
Just
or
one more episode. How long do you think the sabbatical will be? 3 months? 2
Remember
months?
if she even was taking a break or she was continuing, because I
have no idea. Usually there's a break afterwards. She hasn't mentioned how long it is.
I seem to remember that she was going to continue right away. Oh, no. Am I mixing up Laura Olympus? I'm mixing up
Laura Olympus is just gone straight
right.
on.
Never mind. So it's Laura Olympus. Okay. So yes, I guess we'll have a break.
I think it's a lot of the original creators take a year or so, don't they? Hopefully it won't.
The last time she took a year off, it's because there was trouble going on with contracts and stuff. So I do not, it was only supposed to be a couple months, and then it got stretched out, and then COVID happened. Everything was crazy. All hell broke loose.
Yeah, I'm assuming a couple of months.
Stacking.
I'm excited. It's already Thursday. That means it's almost Monday.
I know. Like, don't wait long.
I don't know. Is it excitement or panic?
Yes.
Just kidding.
So,
They're the same thing. They are all, it's all the same brain chemicals.
It really is.
He's the animal behavioralist. There we go. This was fun. I really hope we did justice. I know that it's a lot of sensitive issues for people, and I hope we addressed it from like every possible angle and tried to be as comprehensive and understanding and sensitive as possible. So I hope everyone listening that we accomplished that, and if not, our apologies.
Only love, yes. Especially for Monkey.
Yeah, it was great. I really appreciate y'all coming on and being so insightful. I love it, and I'm so appreciative that everyone shares their wonderful insights, because the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts.
Well,
thank you for having us, as always.
Thanks.
Super fun.
Yeah, and we will see what happens next week.
Oh God.
I like that. I like to make a clip out of that. All right, thanks so much. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you to my current patrons: Susie, Lady Libras, Lily, Jenny, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Jo Rochelle, Saucy Tuggles, and Rose, Alexa, Misty, Joanne, Emilda, Esther, 𝗏𝗏 people, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, Kay, Lily Beckett, Krystine, Sadie, Kelly, Teresa, Mrs. Castaldo. Your support is truly appreciated.